the presenting sponsor of Communicating Good is, well, no one. This is our second episode, and we don't have any sponsors yet. But that's so nice that you thought we had a presenting sponsor. Thank you, you guys. That means a lot. We hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to Communicating Good, a podcast by Sam-A-Lot Media, a communication strategy and content production consultancy. I'm the Sam of Sam-A-Lot and your host. In every episode of Communicating Good, we explore culture shifts, trends, innovations, and current events. The world is weird and wonderful. Let's talk about it. I'm joined this week again, and hopefully many other weeks because listeners have demanded it, by acupuncturist, photographer, bestie, and a woman very ready to use her words, Sara Erdman.
Hi, Sam.
Hello. Last week, Sara and I talked about some of the experiences we had while going to junior high in the 1980s. There was one big question that we started exploring in particular. It was whether the experiences we had during that time defined the adults that we became, the people we are today. And if they did, how much? It's a big topic, so we decided to continue the conversation this week. And with that, I am happy to welcome Sara back to the Sam-A-Lot Media Isolation Booth. Welcome, Sara. How are you today?
I'm good, Sam. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I'm happy to be doing this again with you.
Yeah, I am as well.
So I mentioned the topic of last week, and I know that, like me, you've been reflecting since that conversation on our junior high experiences.
Mm-hmm. Because who doesn't love to do that?
It's for most people just a happy, uplifting time in their lives.
Wonderful foundational time in everyone's lives.
Yes.
Not at all awkward or painful.
And fortunately, and I say that with complete sincerity, fortunately, we experienced that together.
We did.
And gave each other a lot of support. So maybe it would be good for us to, before delving into this, share a little bit more about our background together.
Mm-hmm. I'll ask you this question, Sam.
Sure.
Did you ever know that you're my hero?
And you are the wind beneath my wings.
Sam has been the wind beneath my wings for 40 years.
About 40 years. It's been very breezy with your wind beneath my wings.
I think it's been your wind beneath my wings.
A lot of wind passed between us, which goes down kind of an odd road. But the sentiment is there.
That's a good foundation for our friendship as well.
Absolutely.
I think we are. I think I realized this in the last episode. I did the math, and it is coming up on our 40th anniversary of friendship. When you moved to my home, the town I was born and raised in, and you joined in 81, would that have been? 82? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was 81.
Yeah.
And my family had been, so we were from the West Coast originally, and my parents had been going to graduate school in Washington State, and we moved to, my dad got his first professorial job, and we moved to Stevens Point, Wisconsin, which is where I met you. So there I was, 11, about to turn 12, in this new town, starting a new school. It was 6th grade, which was the last year. It was the top grade in the grade school that we went. So all these kids who had known each other all that time, and I'm coming in that year. I didn't know anybody, and within maybe a month of arriving, I had not only met you, but you had invited me to your birthday party.
Aww.
And that was huge. That was a big event in my life.
I remember thinking you were very funny. If I recall, the thing that brought us together was that you had decided to create a food museum in your locker, maybe your first foray into comedy or satire, a little bit of that.
Or domain. Sure.
So you would take like whatever we had in our hot lunches at school, and you created a museum in your locker as a tribute to those foods.
Yes, I did.
Yeah,
and
I think
that too.
In fact, Sam.
Yes.
I think I have right here from my archives. I have a little record of this actually from my 1982 diary, May 3rd, 1982, specifically 10:25 p.m. I was up late writing this. Wow. Sam is starting a food museum in her locker. So far, she has one hangover hot dog and bun. I think they were called hangover hot dogs because they were long and hung over the bun, not something.
Let's go with that. That sounds right.
That 6th graders had hangovers in the 80s in Wisconsin. I mean, it was Wisconsin.
And needed to line their bellies with some pork products during lunch.
During lunch. Anyway, so far she has one hangover hot dog and bun, half a smoked sausage, a root beer, tater tots, carrots, peanut butter, and raisins. She is funny sometimes.
Sometimes. I too remember the food museum in my locker, and I remember the progressive smell the smell that got progressively worse. And I'm not sure what the first time was, what prompted me to start putting food first of all, to not finish my lunch and instead then put it in my locker and then leave it there and add more food to that. I have no explanation for that.
Well, clearly I thought it was hilarious and warranted you an invite to my slumber party for my birthday that year.
Yes. And we've been friends ever since.
Best friends ever since.
Yes.
Yeah.
So speaking of your diary, I know that in preparation for the show this week, so let me just back up a sec. We want to be as academic and scientific as possible in our conversations on the podcast, especially when we think about things like junior high. Mm-hmm. And in that vein, I know that you did some really deep diving.
I've done a lot of deep diving
into your archives.
I have a lot of archives.
And you have made some incredible discoveries that you brought to share with us today. So,
yeah.
As a way of exploring our experience in junior high, let's go right to your writings.
Oh, okay. Well, I think, what we talked about last week, and again, as Sam has mentioned, we want to, build on this concept of, these events that shaped us, in those early days and how they've carried through to our lives. And, certainly the things that led to friendships that sustain for life, but then also the things that, we talked, I think I mentioned last time, junior high being a very painful time. And a lot of that pain came from friendships that were shifting and changing during that time. Yeah. So I actually found a writing, I think I actually wrote this in high school, but it was reflecting back on that time in junior high. So I will just share these, it's a little bit of insight into how it felt to go through. I had a friend who I had been friends with in grade school who kind of, shifted and decided she didn't want to be friends with me anymore. And that was a really painful moment in my life. And so this is just a little bit about that, that maybe adds a little bit more to our foundation here. So it's just called Friends. All the way through grade school, my best friend was Carrie. I had other good friends, but I wasn't friends with them all the way through elementary school like I was with her. We didn't fight too much, at least not until about 6th grade. We had one big fight, and even though we made up, it was never the same again. In 7th grade, we were friends up until about Christmas. When we came back from vacation, she pretty much ignored me, and if we did talk, she would put me down and stuff like that. I don't know why she was doing this, and I was pretty hurt by it all at the time. But luckily, at about the same time all that was happening, I became friends with Samantha Stokes.
That's me.
That's Sam. That's her maiden name. She was the complete opposite of Carrie. Carrie and I never really talked too much about how we really felt about important stuff, like life and death, and most important of all, boys. So thank you, Sam, for being there to talk to me about boys.
Matters of life and death and boys.
Yeah. But it's funny, and looking back now, I remember the pain of going through that, of coming back and this friend that had been there all my life, just all of a sudden not wanting to be my friend anymore. And not just that, but saying really mean things about me to other people. And I still feel like that. There's still a little bit of pain from that. Maybe I just need therapy or something, more therapy. That still lives on. And I still have this fear that, my friends might just decide one day that they don't like me. But I remember also being very grateful for the people that I did find as friends like you and other people in our circles of friends, because feeling like, okay, these are the people that really do get me. Yeah. And that, obviously has stuck all these 40 years with us.
Yeah, I really identify with that. And one similarly painful memory that I have is, it was a couple of years later, but my family was out of the country. We did that periodically because my father was doing research. So we were in England one summer, and I'd had to leave all of our friend group behind. And I think that was probably the year that we were going into 9th grade, the summer before we went into 9th grade. And so I was, yes, it's really a great, looking in hindsight, it's a great gift to have gone to England with my family. At the time, I hated it because I wanted to be back in the States with my friends.
I remember that because you were gone.
Yeah.
We were writing letters back and forth all the time.
Writing letters back and forth.
Before things like email.
Yes, before email. And
texting existed.
None of that, right? So it was the handwritten letter that we'd send. We'd wait a week for it to arrive somewhere, and then somebody would write back, and I'd have to wait another week. So it was 2 weeks in that whole loop. So I'd been writing letters back to all of, our friend group that summer, talking about the plans that we would have that year and how excited I was to be going into 9th grade and what we were going to be doing. And partway through the summer, I get a letter from one of our friends, who I won't name, and the whole letter was talking about how, hey, when you get back, we're not going to be friends anymore. I'm going to be moving on. I have new friends. I want to have some new experiences this year. I just don't really want to spend time with you anymore. So when you get back, in the country, don't call me.
Oh man,
we're done. We're not hanging out anymore. So it was really painful. I was devastated. I didn't see it coming. And yes, and it affected me deeply. I mean, I think about it all these years later, and I can still channel that pain. So, and I can't imagine that we are unusual in that, I guess is my point.
Yeah.
So then taking a few steps back, back to this question of how do those experiences, how much do they impact who we are today? I think like you, I don't know that I have great concerns around, I don't have maybe a fear or paranoia that somebody's going to stop being my friend. But I recognize I guess my point is, it made me value the people who were close to me more, the people who stood by me.
Yep.
That I recognized it then. I was that through high school. I was that way through college. And to this day, I just have a very strong feeling to keep the people who are close to me close and to value that.
Yep. I agree. Yeah. Well, and it reminds me of another story of, when you think about the people that are there for you and willing to do anything for you. And I think I don't remember if we were in junior high or high school, and so I love adventures like rides and roller coasters and stuff like that. Sam does not.
I do not.
She does not. But yet we were at a small, town fair that had the zipper ride, and I wanted to go on it so badly. And she came on it with me, and I didn't realize until we got on how bad that actually was for her to be on there.
Due to motion sickness. Speaking of things that don't change.
But, and then just, like looking back and having that moment, like, oh my gosh, she was willing to face this horrible fear and do something that made her very ill. And I feel bad. It's like, you realize then, okay, these are the people that are going to be there for you through the rough stuff and support you in different ways, and hopefully not throw up all over you. You didn't that night. So
I didn't.
Later, I believe.
I did. I have, yes, my two main memories of that zipper ride was first when we were put into the little cage cars and they were going around loading everybody else up. At some point we were upside down, and I don't know why, but I had a ton of change in my pockets, loose change. And I remember being upside down and recognizing before the ride had even started that this was going to go down in a really bad way for me. And then
I think I knew that too, because we hadn't even, they were still loading. And so we were just like going straight up without even tilting at all. And you were already looking a little gray. And I thought, oh no, I've made a terrible mistake.
But I can still hear in my head the moment when we were a little bit upside down, when all the change went cascading out of my pockets and just rained down on all the little cars beneath us. Just the pinging and the dimes and the quarters and the pennies dropping to the ground. That has stayed with me forever. And I have to assume played a role in who I am today. I'm not sure how. I don't carry loose change.
And I don't ever try to force you onto roller coaster or zipper rides again.
That is true. You never have.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
So let's move on here in our forensic examination of the writings of Sara Erdman.
Oh, God.
What's next?
So we had an assignment back in high school. This was.
This was early. This was sophomore year.
Sophomore year. So this would have been, I think, fall of 85. And we had this really wonderful English teacher who was just adored by all of us. And she gave us the writing assignment to imagine ourselves as adults. I don't know if she gave us a specific age. I feel like it might have been 35. Like imagine you're 35 years old and a magazine is coming to interview you. What is the magazine? What are you talking about? And ladies and gentlemen, I have the Rolling Stone exclusive interview with Academy Award-winning actress Sara Erdman.
35-year-old.
35-year-old.
Academy Award-winning
actress Sara Erdman. So, okay, folks, here it is. Rolling Stone's exclusive interview with Academy Award-winning actress Sara Erdman. She was a hit in her first film at age 24, and 11 years later, she's still going strong and about to make her debut on stage in A Chorus Line towards the end of the month. And we are here to find out about some of those things. This was like a rough draft copy that I have, so it's a little hard to read. And maybe we'll find out some of the things that will be happening with her in the future. I talked to the pretty green-eyed brunette at her townhouse in L.A. I don't think I knew what a townhouse actually was.
But you had a mortgage.
I don't think there were a lot of townhouses in Stevens Point, Wisconsin. Because I envision it as a very large house with a pool. Anyway, she lives there and she shares it with her fellow actor and fiance, Brian Johnson. The most exciting name ever.
Was he perhaps in the witness protection program?
I think he might have been.
A name like that?
Clearly, I did not know a lot of people with interesting names besides Brian Johnson. Brian and I, back to the article, Brian and I met at a party for Power Station. We might have to explain to the kids who Power Station is. I believe it was a band. John Taylor was in it. He was my favorite member of Duran Duran.
Which you probably should also explain, but anyway.
Hopefully they don't. Yeah, with
very popular bands of the time.
Yeah. So he and I met at a party for Power Station, and I had come with Sam Stokes, the rock musician, because neither of us had dates. Which, as an award-winning actress and a famous rock musician going to a party for other rock bands, neither one of us could get a date, apparently.
Wow, very sad for us
I know.
as celebrities.
Anyway.
And you had a townhouse.
I had a townhouse.
You still couldn't get a
I had a
date.
townhouse and everything, and I was still dateless for this party. Oh, but fortunately, you know who else didn't have a date, Sam?
Who?
Brian Johnson.
Well, that is kismet. That is stars crossing. International Academy Award-winning 35-year-old Sara Erdman about to appear in Chorus Line, quote, quote, towards the end of this month, would cross paths outside her townhouse with the enigmatic, the mysterious
Brian Johnson. But anyway, we were there because Sam knew the guy that he was with, and they introduced us because they were tired of us staring at each other across the room.
Wow.
It's only Academy Award. It's only Academy Award-winning actresses and Brian Johnson.
I think that you have really, at a very young age, you really tapped into the realities of celebrity culture, because one thing I've always heard about celebrities, especially when they are at, for example, a Hollywood party with a lot of other celebrities, they don't like to interact. There's a lot of staring across the room at one another.
It's bad.
No words exchanged.
Yeah.
So this is tracking.
Yeah.
You were a good
But you know what else
junior high
happened that
journalist.
night?
Please go on.
After the party, we went for a late night dinner. And it's been love ever since. And, when this interview was happening, it was about 90 degrees outside. And we were out to sit by my kidney-shaped pool at my townhouse, apparently. Yeah. The backyard is lined with trees for privacy.
Yeah, it's nice.
But they don't cast much shade on the deck where we were sitting, so Sara was wearing a white two-piece suit so she could tan while we talked, even though she's already quite dark.
I think it's really a shame that, especially when you hear about a celebrity who can't get the right kind of landscaping
Yeah.
to provide adequate shading in their backyard.
Privacy.
I think there's a melanoma risk there.
I think there is. I think that was something that wasn't talked about enough in the 80s when tanning was involved. Yeah.
Certainly not by you and Brian Johnson.
Certainly not by Brian Johnson and I. So then Rolling Stone, the interviewer, who is nameless, says, have you and Brian set a date for the wedding? No, we're going to wait until our lives slow down a little bit. Brian's just starting another movie and I'm doing a chorus line, and we figured it would just be easier that way. Also, we're not one of those couples who's afraid we're going to lose each other if they don't get married immediately. Just knowing that somebody will get married someday is enough for me.
Someday.
Someday.
There's a... You know,
at this point, I should probably mention that I have never been married.
I am fascinated by the alternating really, really deep specificity and the utter vagueness.
Yes.
For example, what is the name of the friend of Brian Johnson who introduced you?
I don't know, but you knew him. You tell me, Sam.
Clearly. I think his name was Joe Stevens.
Probably. Yeah. John Smith.
Yes.
Yeah. Then it goes on to me talking a lot about dancing, and if I dance as much as I used to or not, because I was always a dancer when I was young, and that was what I wanted to be. And it talks about my Oscar, and I really hoped that dancing would help keep me in shape, but I just love to dance. I can just let myself go and forget about everything else and just let the music take control. Isn't that a Lisa with Cult Jam in full force? I don't know. I feel like it should have been.
Possibly so.
Dancing has really helped me to get through life so far, and I hope it helps me get through the rest of my life as good as it has before. And the teacher crossed out good and wrote in well.
Nice. So, I mean, that ends on a really, I think, a really touching emotional note, because it mentions the things that I know from having been on this life's journey with you have remained important to you. I mean, you are a lifelong dancer, and you have still have a love of the theater, and these are all things that have continued to bring meaning to your life and enjoyment. And
yeah, very much. And it's always been something that's been at my core, even as I get older and have, can't enjoy it at the same level that I once did, just physically with the older body now. But I think the things that we love and that we feel passionate about stay with us through the years, in different ways.
So clearly, I know we're coming up on our time, and clearly this conversation is going to have to continue because you have.
I have a lot more stories.
You did a whole lot. There's a whole lot more to your forensic examination of our adolescence.
Yeah.
But before we close this episode, you had a poem that you wanted to share.
I did. So the same teacher in the same class had us we did a lot of writing exercises as one does in any English class. And of course, sorry, I'm trying to find it here. She had presented us with kind of like a Mad Libs approach to poetry. And generally, I wrote a lot of really, really bad poetry about being in love. And this one, I took a different approach, and we had this little Mad Lib style where she gave us some of the words, and we filled in some of the others, and we got to choose the subject. And I wrote it about friendship and about my friend Sam. Nice. So here is my poem about Sam Stokes. I see you there in the South Commons, acting crazy as usual. It is fall, during lunch. I see your face, talking with great animation. Your sky is bright blue with a few clouds here and there. Sometimes I wonder how in the world we got to be friends. I see your hands putting money into the food slot machines. I think that was a joke that we had. I am red in the face from laughing so hard. I see you there in the South Commons, acting crazy as usual. My sky is bright and sunny.
So sweet. Well, on that note, I'll thank you again, Sarah, for joining today.
Thank you, Sam.
I look forward to talking to you again. And I hope you've all enjoyed this episode of Communicating Good.